Hey guys, welcome back to another League video, and for today I want to talk about the hardest champions to play in each of the 5 roles. I know this is a fairly common discussion or guide topic, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm suffering from a crippling case of writer's block this week, and I've had this in my little jar of ideas for a while. Besides, everyone likes to downplay how hard or easy their champions are, so if nothing else, I'll have a lot of fun reading the comments. What we're going to be doing is picking 3 champions from top jungle, mid, ADC, and support for a total of 15. And they'll basically be my top 3 hardest champions of each role. Bear in mind, just like with any other top 3, top 5, top 10, whatever, the list will not be exhaustive. Just because the champions are mentioned among the 15 does not mean they're not difficult to play. These are just the ones that in my opinion deserve attention for having a high skill floor and or ceiling to play successfully. Oh, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're the strongest champions in the current meta. With that said and done, let's begin starting with top lane. Before we get started on the video, I just want to say hope everyone's having a fun time watching Worlds, and like last year, Opera GX is back with some free stuff they're giving out in celebration of the event. The Riot Corner's gotten a big update, so if you watch Worlds on lolesports.com using Opera GX, there will be real-time loot drops that appear on screen for you to pick up, which consists of a Hextech chest and a key, and you know how rare those are nowadays. To specify, this will take place during Grand Finals on November 9th, so while you're watching it, be sure to check out the top right corner and you'll get your Opera GX exclusive loot. That aside, the Riot Corner will give you all major events and regional leagues that take place throughout the year by checking on the calendar, which automatically adjusts itself to your time zone, and you can have all your favorite league streamers available to watch in one place, including official co-streamers. In case you need a reminder on where to get the Riot Corner, just head to the GX store and look for one of the official League of Legends mods. It automatically comes with it. In addition, Opera's worked on improving their built-in ad blocker and VPN, so you don't have to worry about downloading third parties. If you're trying to avoid ads or stay anonymous, you can use your GX ad blocker and VPN, and you can even get 2 months of VPN Pro for free using the code EarnYourLegacy in Opera GX. I know moving over from another browser can be a daunting task in light of all the bookmarks, history, cookies, settings, and whatnot you'll lose, but Opera takes care of that with a quick import tool, letting you synchronize everything from other browsers and also being fully compatible with every Google Chrome extension, so it's all positives, no compromise. Definitely check out Opera GX using my link on screen, which is also in the description below. I've been using it ever since 2021, and it's been with me ever since. Thanks again as always to Opera for sponsoring the video, and again, hope you guys enjoy Worlds, but for now, let's get back to the video. Top lane is considered by many to be the easiest role to get into in light of how no one really expects anything of you half the time. Commonly referred to as the game's island, where it's mostly just you and your lane opponent, and with the bulk of the early game action typically happening on the opposite end of the map near the Dragon Pit, it takes a while for top lane's influence to actually be felt over the course of a match. That said, if there's one thing top lane can do very well, it's pressure control. For that reason, I consider Gangplank to be the most difficult top laner in the game. Technically, GP can be flexed into mid lane, but over the years it's become a lot harder to play him in mid lane, so you primarily see him in top lane. He gets a bad rap on account of how much of a lane bully he feels to play against. Having effectively a point-and-click ranged auto attack that can proc stuff like Spellblade makes him really obnoxious to deal with, and factoring how difficult it can be to engage against him by way of an immediate cleanse and heal on his W, plus the area control and heavy slow on Powder Keg, I wouldn't be surprised to see a number of players downplaying how difficult he is. But one of the biggest challenges of playing GP is exerting pressure, and in his case, it's not quite clear-cut on how to best do that. For one, more than half of his DPS is attached to a mechanic that can end up doing 0 damage, as enemies can disarm Powder Keg before it explodes. 2. Powder Keg is for the most part easily telegraphed, and GP has no consistent method of recourse available. He can either do a ton of damage or no damage at all. At the same time, he's neither a mage nor a brawler, despite having aspects of both, and properly timing and placing cannon barrage is integral to pressuring aspects of the map. At times I know he can feel really overpowered, like that one viral clip of Tyler 1 literally getting one-shotted, but while it burns my tongue to say it, GP's exceptionally challenging to pilot correctly, and I respect anyone who puts in the time to play him over another champion. Honorable mentions go to Cassante and Mbessa. Overpowered of the history he may have had, Cassante is actually one of the most difficult tanks to play because knowing when to commit to an all-in and when to stay in your tank form focusing on more trades and harass is extremely difficult, especially when it comes to positioning. Tanks are often known for their ease of use, but Cassante requires an insane amount of positional and situational awareness. You can't just Oonga Boonga your way through like you can on other tanks. Mbessa's in a similar boat. She has the ability to output extreme damage and avoid just about everything in the game, but once again, positional and situational awareness are of paramount importance when playing her, and she can just as easily do 0 damage as she can do thousands. Both honorable mentions require a lot more finesse and split-second decision-making in fights, oftentimes not having a clear-cut win condition on how to play them. Over into the jungle. Jungle's developed a reputation for being the role with the most agency, practically obligatory for a team to succeed in the mid to late game, and instrumental for establishing early control around the map. As you know, there are different niches within the jungle role such as ganking, farming, and predator. The hardest ones are those who can theoretically excel in all three simultaneously or likewise be irrelevant at all three. No one epitomizes that more than Nidalee. More than just being good at landing her Q, Nidalee's kit is constructed as such that she's the ultimate predator jungler, capable of outpacing, outpressuring, and outganking any other member of the jungle roster, all with a single but imperative caveat. You have to neutralize the enemy jungler, and quickly. Nidalee operates on a very fine line between impossible to shut down and completely useless. You have to essentially be one step ahead of the enemy jungler the entire game, and while that applies to every jungler to an extent, why it matters most on Nidalee is that she is the perfect tools to snowball. She is an incredible neutral game for a jungler, constant long-range high damaging Qs in addition to withstanding enemy neutral games by way of her massive heal. She has traps to set up her pressure and scout for enemy champions, she has good tempo courtesy of her animal form Q, and her pursuit capabilities are part of what makes a good Nidalee player so scary. All the same, she doesn't really excel in anything either. Full-blown assassins like Rengar and Kha'Zix have more assault force than she does by leaps and bounds. Hard engagers like Hecarim and J4 can blast through enemy teams more effectively, and tanks obviously carry crowd control, the one thing she doesn't have. Nidalee can only be at her best when outclassing the enemy jungler. If she doesn't, she's by far the most useless jungler in the game. She can't engage, she can't peel, she can't tank, and if you're behind you obviously don't do damage either. She does nothing. Nidalee is by far the most difficult jungler to play in League, it's not even close. The silver and bronze medals will go to, I would say, Rengar and Kindred. At times it may feel like Rengar's one-shot combo consists of just mashing QEW and calling it a day, but the amount of situational awareness it takes to 1. Decide which of his empowered abilities to use because all 3 of them carry tremendous impact, and 2. Use brushes to not only gap close on your target of choice, but also potentially dodge enemy attacks and or escape to safety are why most elo boosters are Rengar mains. He is the ultimate jungle div champion that is in Nidalee, with an equally busted advantage state and an equal chance to also crumble apart. Kindred's a predator jungler despite being a marksman, the class not known for early game aggression. Purely due to the existence of marks, they are the quintessential macro jungler. Your jungle fundamentals have to be on point if you want to play them effectively, especially considering how vulnerable you are to mistakes when caught in a bad position. Then of course, the presence of mind in knowing how to use their ultimate without accidentally griefing your team further lends itself to their learning curve. The mid lane serves as the anchor of the team, a stable presence on the map that can do just about anything and everything early to mid game. As such, good mechanics and map awareness take precedence, and for my money I'll put Azir as the most difficult mid laner to play. Well known for his presence in pro play, Azir was the most overloaded champion in the game when he first came out. He was the 200 years before 200 years became a thing, which if you think about it, he came out in 2014. What's most responsible for Azir's difficulty is that he's one of the few puppeteer champs in the game, but unlike Orianna, Azir has multiple puppets that you have to command, maneuver, and manipulate to the best of your ability. And in some ways, Azir is more dependent on his soldiers than Orianna is on her bolt, because Azir can never directly keep the soldiers on himself. By all accounts, he's a completely helpless champion. When things go south for Orianna, you can always just command protect and shockwave on yourself, whereas Azir cannot recall the soldiers to him when all hell breaks loose. You have to position yourself and your soldiers correctly to attack, defend, engage, disengage, and zone control all at different times, and the rest of his abilities do exactly that. Q repositions his troops, and D repositions himself. The only consistent aspect of him is Emperor's Divine, but even that ability has a ton of potential use cases. Beyond the possibility of using it to literally divide the enemy team by shoving them into his own team, Azir can cast his ultimate to block off an entire section of a fight, single-handedly deciding the course of that fight. His passive also contributes in that regard, letting you set up a temporary turret to either establish a siege or defend against one. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to claim Azir might be the hardest champion in League of Legends period. The sheer amount of hours you have to put into this man just to get him started is staggering. Maybe Gangplank or Nidalee has the higher ceiling overall, but skill floor, unequivocally Azir is the hardest. He is micromanagement the champion. The number 2 and 3 spots will go to Qiyana and Chase. Qiyana is one of the only assassins in the game whose pressure completely changes based on where you're fighting, not just where you are in that immediate moment, but where you are in relation to your opponents. Knowing when to go brush Q to buy time, or to go terrain Q for DPS, or even river Q for lockdown. And lest you forget, damn near all of her attacks are skill shots that can be avoided, and she doesn't have the same freedom of mobility the way her fellow AD assassin peers do. Qiyana has to land every part of her kit near perfectly to be effective, giving her a very tight margin for error. The only catch is that her kit isn't really face rollable, although granted, the payoff is certainly worth the investment when doing so. Jace might be a bit of a hot take, but much like Nidalee, this guy has the potential to be the most dangerous member of the enemy team or the most irrelevant. I always regard transformation champs more highly difficulty-wise, but in the case of Jace, though he has a fairly linear combo game, especially once you go melee, you need very good decision making to play him well because he's neither a fighter, nor a tank, nor an assassin, nor a mage. He's a bit of everything. Now before you guys complain why I left out Akali or Zed or someone else, once again, this is not an exhaustive list. It depends on what you hold in higher regard. The AD carry role has expanded a fair bit to include a couple other strategies, AP carry or even fasting Senna duos to name a few, but the overall premise of bot lane remains the same: deal damage, lots and lots of damage. Deciding which champion to name the most challenging depends on what part of the ADC role you think is most important. An argument can be made for Ezreal on account of him being all skill shots, and if you suck at aiming, he's a bad champion, or you might put it on Draven because of the axe catching thing. But in my opinion, I think it's a toss-up between Aphelios or Kalista. I'm gonna stick with Kalista. While many marksmen have dashes in their kit to help reposition them during a fight, no champion has the same reposition capability that Kalista does. She can literally move around with every auto attack, giving her some of the best battle tempo in the game. The challenge of course is that that's the only thing she has to keep herself in the game. If playing well, Kalista can be an absolute force in skirmishes and teamfights, and to add on to that, she has Rend, making her easily the best objective controller in the game. Both aspects, her combat mobility and objective pressure, were so oppressive that Kalista became the poster child of the pro play jail. She would literally become pick ban in pro play if Riot gave her even the slightest buff, all because of how well she can navigate fights and play for objectives. Micromechanically, skirting the line between being close enough to attack enemies but far enough away to maintain her safety margin makes Kalista really hard to play, especially given that she has no built-in self-peel or burst option. She can't even rely on Fate's Call to save her given the delay it has before your partner can jump back out. Macromechanically, she is the only ADC in the game with a direct dependence on her support, requiring you to be on the same page as her support in when to attack or retreat. Plus, establishing lane priority to set up for Dragon and then later area control for Baron forces a Kalista player to have the mindset of a jungler, being at the right place at the right time on account of needing a fair bit of time to stack spears. She might not be nearly as outplay intensive like Vayne for example, but there's a reason Kalista's only really played in pro play or as a duo boost. I'll put Aphelios and Ezreal in honorable mentions. For Aphelios, the proof is in the pudding, managing 5 weapons and having to manage them in a way to give you the right combination for the right scenario, keeping track of your ammo supply and being aware of what's coming up next to arm you properly for the ensuing battle. Most people think you want to go just like Severum and Crescendum for optimal DPS, but occasionally you'll find yourself wanting Calibrum and Gravitum for long-range poke and lockdown, or Infernum and Crescendum for wave clear and teamfight pressure. You may have noticed that micromanagement is a recurring theme among the champions I mentioned, and Aphelios is no exception. As for Ezreal, there are good Ezreals and then there are good Ezreals. He's a fairly simple champion to play at a surface level, but he's always been one of those champs who consistently has a negative win rate, and that's because most people suck at him. Yeah, all those Ziggs and Xerath memes, be quiet, your champions are free as hell. Last but not least, support. I've always been a proponent that support is a criminally underappreciated role and a lot more difficult to play properly than people think. Most support champions are meant to be easy to play mechanically because they're intended to be consistent members of your team, offering guaranteed value in regards to utility and crowd control. The difficulty of playing support is in the role itself, not so much the champion. However, if I had to give it to one champion, believe it or not, I don't think it's Thresh, it's Bard. Bard is the only support in the game that outright forces you to roam around the map. If you don't pick up chimes, you don't scale well into the mid to late game. While good support players will always make attempts to roam, Bard requires even more so to play effectively, and you also can't just go about a fight conventionally either. Tools like Magical Journey and Tempered Fate deal no damage to the enemy team, and on some occasions, they can add the adverse effect of helping the enemy team. It's exceedingly rare for a champion to possess even one ability that can grief your team. Bard has 2. Playing him well literally makes the difference between helping and hurting your team's chances of victory. A good Bard player is a menace to shut down. He can give his team tons of different ways to engage and completely middle finger your entire team's momentum, all while being the most annoying piece of shit who's seemingly uncatchable. I might be overvaluing the skill floor and ceiling of Tempered Fate and Magical Journey, but I personally consider Bard very difficult to play by way of how unconventional of a champion he is. Honorable mentions go to Thresh and Renata Glask. Thresh is a very versatile playmaking support, but that only adds to the depth of playing him well. Knowing how to use each of his abilities, of which all of them have multiple use cases, can easily distinguish between a good and bad Thresh player. Same with Renata, her moves can either have underwhelming value or game-changing value, making her ever so slightly more mechanically and decision-intensive than your typical tank or enchanter support. Both champions make up for their lower potential output with a higher upside. They're not as consistent or one-note as the likes of Blitzcrank or Soraka. For that reason, I consider them more difficult to play. Alrighty, so putting everything together, hardest top laner is Gangplank, hardest jungler is Nidalee, hardest mid laner is Azir, hardest ADC is Kalista, and hardest support is Bard, alongside the honorable mentions. Let me know in the comments down below whether you agree or disagree with my choices, but for the time being, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter @Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other League of Legends discussion videos if you haven't yet. Until next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.